right, welcome to your new Mercedes EV. I'm gonna just shoot a quick video here to show how to operate sort of all the controls and buttons and give you a little introduction to the technology. So let's start the vehicle up. It's push button to start, obviously. So this will fire up our gauges. We'll get our center screen started up. We might as well click that we want to allow software updates. So it's over the air software updates via satellite. So we'll allow that. And this will take us to our home screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of left to right, just the way we would read, and we'll work our way across. So basically on the door of the new style Mercedes, EVs or not, you've got your lock and unlock kind of integrated into the door handle, kind of to, I think, mirror the seat adjustment. The seat adjustment is similar to the previous generation Mercedes, but it's slightly different. The old ones would actually have a rocker kind of feel to the controls. Now it just senses your touch. So if I just sort of rest my finger against any of these spots, the car seat starts moving. The thigh extension, they also added, basically it just rolls out from its current position rather than moving and creating a gap that crumbs and things can fall into. The seat actually just sort of grows and shrinks based on that adjustment there. You've got your heated seat and your memory settings. Now the memory in a vehicle like this isn't like the old cars where it would just remember your seat. This, you're gonna wanna set your seat, then you're gonna wanna set your steering column, so there's a little joystick here that moves it up and down. You wanna set your mirrors, and you actually wanna set also your head-up display position and brightness, because it'll remember that as well. So when you click M1 to save, it's remembering all four of those things. So seat, steering wheel, mirrors, and head-up display position. The other controls here, pretty straightforward, just like every car you've ever owned. You've got power windows, there's a window lockout, mirror controls, and then there is the function that's kind of unique to Mercedes where the mirrors will fold in when it's locked, but you can force them to fold in if you were going down a really narrow street or if you're waiting for somebody in busy traffic. You've got a control here that opens and closes the trunk. The lights, most people leave in auto and just kind of set it and forget it. You do have a additional fog light button at the bottom there, and when I click that on, you get the indicator of the fog light. This one has the auto high beam assist, so that little A at night will light up bright blue when your brights are on, and then it'll recognize if a car is coming towards you and it'll turn them off, and then it'll turn them back on. So the lights basically truly set it, forget it. Parking brake is automatic, so they have a manual override, but by default it'll engage when the car is in park, and as soon as I put it in drive, it would disengage, and vice versa. Now, the shifter is still up here, just like Mercedes has been doing for the last few years. So up for reverse, down for drive, park, the little button at the end. And then over on this side, it's a little bit higher quality feeling control, but it's the same as, again, what they've been using for years. So you've got rain sensing wipers there. So low level rain sensing, high level, and then the wipers are on. And your single swipe is a light press of the button at the end. And then if you firmly press that button, that's what sprays fluid on the windshield. And then of course, this is also your signal light. The paddle shifters still rest behind the steering column, but on an EV, it's a bit different. So I'll explain that in a second. As far as the controls on either side of the steering wheel, the top of the steering wheel has the same three buttons on both sides. The reason for that is you've got a screen right in front of you and a screen to your right. So your left hand controls the left screen, your right hand controls the right screen. So if I want to make changes to what's on display here, I do it with this little OK and the arrows, and it's capacitive touch. So there's no pressing, it's just swiping. So I swipe up and down if I want to change what's on display. If I want to bring up the home, if I click the house, then I can change my gauge package. So there's quite a few loaded in there. So I was just in the classic gauge package, and I can pick from a whole bunch of different items that I can have on display in the center. But if I'm going out for a more spirited drive, I might choose the sport gauge package. And then this little thing will move around with the G-forces, and it'll show you your horsepower and torque and things. You can also go to understated, which is very minimalist. You can see it doesn't even show you like 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers until you're there. Like, it keeps the gauges as minimal as possible. And when I'm within this gauge, if I click the OK, I can actually change what color sunset I'm staring at, and it changes the background color of the center cluster as well. So you've got quite a bit of kind of comfort customization within that one. If I go past the classic, navigation brings up a full screen nav. So if you were doing, a highway drive or trying to find somebody, that's a nice one. There's a driver assistance gauge package, which will show you the driver assistance systems in operation. And then there's a service tab for the service department to use. So I'll put it back to the classic. And I mean, a lot of people prefer that the large navigation in the center. Now, within that adjustment screen, when I click that, you might have noticed above there's sort of a little grayed out box. If I swipe up, what that is the same thing I was just adjusting for this gauge. It's an adjustment for the head-up display. So by default, it'll be in the standard, but there's a sport head-up display. I doubt you'd be able to see that on the windshield, but you've got a minimalist head-up display, you have the eco head-up display, and you can go into the settings, and this is where you would adjust by just sort of swiping up and down the position, so height, and then if I swipe to the right or the left, it's the brightness. So that's how you adjust your kind of head-up display position. So back out of that and go back into our classic gauges. Now the other controls down below are the cruise control. So press on to set it, and then just click set at the top or the bottom, and you've got your speed set. It'll show you what speed you've set, and it will show up in the head-up display. And then if I want to add speed, I just swipe, again, capacitive touch. You just slide your finger up and down to go 1 kilometer an hour. If I want to add 10 kilometers an hour, a click will do that. So if you click at the top or click at the bottom to add or remove 10 kilometers an hour. And then the button at the top here is the active distance. So if I click that, you can see it'll show basically how far behind the car in front of me am I comfortable trailing. So it makes that adjustment. At highway speeds, the steering wheel and the lane keep, those will light up green when the car is actually able to read the road. And what those do is they just keep essentially your car is driving itself. You'll see it'll follow the lines of the road. If you put your signal light on, it'll say lane change left, and it'll move itself over when safe to do so. So it's basically self-driving. By default, there's a setting where it'll actually, if you come up on a car that's going slower than you, it'll actually put your signal light on and move over without you doing anything. I have that feature turned off on my demo, but some people do want the car to fully self-drive. So I'll turn the cruise control off. Moving on to the other side. So the top 3 buttons are if you want to use that to control this screen. So if I kind of start swiping around, you can see I'm highlighting different things on the screen. So I'm right now in there, and if I swipe to the right, it goes over to the right. If I click the house, it brings up like as if I had clicked the home button, and then I can swipe over and I can go into a setting there. Click the house to go back to the home screen, and the back button will take you back 1 step. The other buttons over here, so when your phone is paired, you've got the ability to answer and hang up phone calls. If you're not on a call and you click up the kind of receiver up, it'll bring up a recent call list. The speech button there will call up the digital assistant. So that's a new feature that Mercedes introduced a few years ago. When you're driving, you don't have to press anything. You say, "Hey Mercedes," and the car will respond, kind of giving you some assistance. So if I say, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help?
Turn on my heated seat."
I'm switching on the seat heating.
And that digital assistant, if you call it up by accident, you can hang up on it by that, but it can control almost every electronic function in the car. Like it can't open your windows, but it can open and close the roller sun blind. It can, change the ambient light color. It can find you a radio station. You can even, it's very intuitive. So you could say, "Hey Mercedes, I'm hot," and it'll change the temperature to a little bit cooler, or "Hey Mercedes, I'm hungry," and it'll bring up a list of restaurants that are nearby. And you can actually ask it what it can do. So I could say, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?
What can you do?"
I can help you operate different functions easily and intuitively. You can see some examples here. Give it a try. If you don't know how to do more, you can say "help" at any time, and I can explain what you can do.
So there you go. So there's a good kind of tool if you want to learn what that assistant can do. And when I'm talking, you can see it's kind of reacting to the fact that it's hearing my voice. When I stop, it goes back to the center. It's kind of looking.
You have not subscribed to this service.
So if I hang up, then that kind of goes away, that function. The last thing, the star, so there is a favorites menu kind of hidden within the screen in the center. If I click the star, it brings it up. So some people never use that button, but if you take the time to curate this favorite section, it can be really handy because you're basically calling up the things you want to be able to access most often. So some people like to change the ambient light frequently, or some people want to, you know, have their charging data, trip data, mobile browser if you use that for the kids a lot. So you've got kind of a favorite section. You can add as many favorites as you want. And the ones that Mercedes puts in by default, if you just hold down on them, you have the ability to delete them. So you can really make this your own and have that star button be very handy. So that's what the favorites section. So if I click the house, it takes me back to the home screen. And we might as well kind of review this home screen. So what we're looking at right now is what they call the zero layer. So this is a new screen layout that was just introduced with the S-Class, I think in 2022. Zero layer is essentially, it's like a computer screen where navigation is your background on your computer, and then things that you're using have these little bubbles. So audio, phone, this is an introduction to the zero layer. So once you watch that, then that would never appear again. This is letting me know that the trunk is open. We've got the EQ, so kind of EQ related stuff, and then navigation. So the things that people use on a daily basis are all sort of on the home screen. And it works with the double click kind of architecture too. So the radio right now is minimalized. I can click the forward button to go to the next station, or if it was music, next track. If I click on it, it brings it up slightly larger, and I can change my source, and the gear icon would be to get into the Burmeister kind of sound customization. But if I click it again, like a second kind of double click, then it becomes full screen, and then I can actually scroll through and choose my stations, and you can favorite things. It does have the ability with SiriusXM to pause and see, I can pause live music. So if I get a phone call and I'm listening to a podcast I really like, I can pause it and start playing it again. So it's quite, you know, obviously a very advanced audio system that you've got under the hood here. If I go back to the home screen, so once your phone is paired up, that would actually be your phone. You can make and receive phone calls, it'll read you text messages, and you can dictate responses. Up in the top corner, there's another button that takes you to your favorites, and there is a user profile button. So what the profiles do is similar to the memory seat. The profile remembers all the digital preferences. So it would recognize if I get in the car and I like it to be purple and I like zero layer, and you know, I've got these sort of digital settings, then it'll remember that. As long as my profile is pulled up, it's going to be the way I like it. But then say my wife likes, you know, green screen and she likes the more classic gauge package, then she clicks her profile and it brings that up. So you've got kind of the ability to save your preferences for these things as well. If I click on it, it just gives you the option to add a user, and it'll use your Mercedes Me account. Within the app, if you have your little widget as saved as a picture from your phone, it'll actually show you your picture on the screen as well. Now within this screen, so if I click on the EQ, this is going to be information related to kind of my EQ stuff. So I can go to searching for charging stations nearby. Within that, you can set preferences. So I only want to see level 2, I only want to see level 3, but it's by default just going to find the ones that are closest by, and it'll show you how many chargers are at that location and then how many are available. The little chevrons here, so 1 means a level 2, and then 2 would be a level 3, kind of less intuitive than you'd think, but a level 1 is the home. So this is a level 3 charger. It's just up the road from us at a Nissan dealership. So if I click let's go, it'll navigate me there. So this charger here would, in theory, if it's giving you maximum output, charge this car from empty to full in about half an hour. The level 1s would do it in 10 to 12 hours. So if you stop at a level 1, or sorry, a level 2, I should say, at a public outing, you're basically just topping up. You're taking yourself maybe an hour, you go to the park and you put 50 kilometers on your range. So that's the idea with like the level 2s, is just a top up. You can save parking spaces. You have the ability to do that when you're driving. You can click on here and you can tag a parking space. What that would do is when you are pulling up to that known parking area, it'll activate the 360 camera without you pressing anything. So even when you're in drive, you get that top-down view. It makes it a little easier to park. I can click on range, and I can see range optimization. So by default right now my range is averaging out to 420 kilometers. If I turn off some of these functions, I can add 9 kilometers to my range. Charging would show me, so right now the vehicle is set to max out at 100% charge, and it shows me the kilowatt hours. What they recommend is ideally for day-to-day use, if you're not driving more than say 200 kilometers a day, you'd actually want to set up either eco charging or just set your max to around 80. Similar to like if I had a glass of water or an empty glass and I said fill it to 80% roughly, you'd be able to do that pretty quickly. If I said fill it to the brim and don't spill any, you'd have to slow right down at the top of that pour. Same thing here. If I set it to 100%, the vehicle easily gets it to 80 and then it slows right down for that last 20%. It's harder for the vehicle to fill up the last 20%. So it's certainly there to use if you're doing a longer drive, but for day-to-day use, you're better off just running it between like 10 to 20% and 80 on the regular, and then use that 100% when you're planning a longer trip. But some people just use 100% all the time, and that's certainly your option. Eco charging will automatically move it down to 80%. That's going to kind of use the least amount of electricity to fill up the vehicle. And you can also change your charging program. So right now it's set to standard. You can set one, once you're in your driveway at home, you can set up a charging program for home where it kind of remembers the way you like to charge at home, and you can set up a separate one for work as well, so, or a separate location. There's a button to open the socket flap. You can pause your charging, and then you can set up a pre-charging, like basically you can prime the battery for charging. So if you set a destination, for example, of a charging station, the batteries will start to prepare to be charged because there's an optimal temperature that they charge faster. So if the vehicle knows that you're going to be plugging it in, it's good to kind of tell it, hey, I'm going to be charging you soon. And then the last tab here is just a running consumption graph. So it'll show you how you've done, you know, during the last however long distance of drive. The next one here, where to, is your good old navigation, put in a destination, and then they have a little charging icon if you just want to quickly bring up that, you know, show me a charger that's nearby. Go back to the home screen. I'm trying to think what else you'd need to know on this home screen. So this right now is the 3D sort of like a bird's eye view. If I click that, then I get the top-down view. And when your phone is paired, you also have the option within the navigation. If I think if I go in here, it would show. No, I think you actually have to have your phone paired up, but you have the ability to have the satellite view, so you can see like lakes and people's swimming pools and stuff, like actual a view of the real world, or as close to it as they've mapped. The items below here, so your heating and air conditioning controls, they're always on display. They fire up as soon as you start the car, so you can quickly kind of turn on your defrosters and things. Your temperature is controlled with an up and down arrow, and your fan speed is controlled with the left and right arrow. And the passenger in this particular version gets their own temperature, which most Mercedes have, but they also get their own fan speed, so they could have theirs blowing faster than the driver. You've got recirculated air set to auto right now, but you can, if you turn off auto, then you're setting everything kind of yourself. And if I click climate menu, then I get a control on the screen here that's a little bit more in depth, so I can change where the air is blowing. I can turn on eco mode. I can sync so that the driver and front passenger are synced together. This particular model has the second row, so it has a heating and air conditioning control unit for the second row, so I can control that up front. And I can actually go in and I can determine what's the quality of air outside the car. So if we were outside, it would show, you know, parts per million. I can turn on ionization, so it's going to clean and filter the air coming into the car. And this vehicle also has the option of having fragrance kind of pushed into the cabin from a little oil canister that's in the glove box. So you have that option. And then pre-entry climate control. This is very important, especially if the vehicle is ever being parked outside, like if you were at a hotel or something like that. If you know when you're going to be leaving, you set that departure time, then the vehicle will be prepared to leave. It'll have it nice and warm and the battery's all ready to go, warmed up, when you get in the car and leave. Now that could be the difference of 100 kilometers on a range of driving, because if you get in the car and everything is frozen solid in the middle of the winter, then you're going to use a lot of juice to get the cabin warmed up, to get the batteries ready to go. But if you tell the car, so if I go in here and I add a new time and I say, okay, so on Tuesday I figure we're going to leave the hotel around 11. So I set that time and I say, okay, well then at Tuesday at 11, when I get to the car, it's all ready to go. It's all warm and good to go. And if you have a daily commute, you can set it every day. I want it at 6 a.m. to be ready to go. So it's really, really, that's a big key feature of the EVs is pre-entry climate control. So if we go back out of here, the other items, so once I go into the home screen, you've got sort of the sub menus that a lot of Mercedes have had for years, and there's some additional kind of toys built into these new models. So if I go into the apps, for example, used to be that I would have the mobile browser and the Mercedes Me. Now you've got this vehicle has a dash cam, so if you put a little USB stick in one of the ports, it'll record. You've got the option of it loop recording, where it'll just basically constantly be recording. So if any roadside incident happens, you've got a documentation of that. I've got the mobile browser and obviously a big beautiful screen. So if I go in here, as long as I'm willing to use my mobile data, so I would select my device for internet access. I don't have my phone paired up, but I could choose, you know, see, I've got my dealership Wi-Fi is there, and I can have this screen basically be a computer screen. So it will show you could watch Netflix. I've brought up YouTube for my daughter to watch. So you've got that mobile browser is really nice if you're sitting waiting for somebody. You've got the that energizing comfort, the little air puck. There's a whole section for that. Beginner driver mode, valet service mode. You can have a photo gallery. So there's some toys built in there. When I go into settings, this brings up a wealth of customization. So each of these tabs along the top has a bunch of tabs on the side, and each side tab has a bunch of adjustments. So I won't go through every single one in detail, but you can see, like, so if I'm in the assistance tab, this is showing the assistance items. So if I say, you know, I want my traffic light view on or off, or I don't like that feature, my camera, I want to pop open the camera cover and wipe that off. Collision avoidance, so I can have it, they're all by default on, but I could turn off, you know, if I don't like lane keep assist. And you can also change, if I click on here, the sensitivity of some of those things. So I can say, you know, don't be so sensitive, like I'd rather it be kind of average. So I can go in there and I can customize that. Likewise with the vehicle. So when I open and close the vehicle, do I want the doors to automatically lock when I start driving? Do I want it to honk the horn when I turn off the car and lock it? Automatic mirror folding, that's a big feature people like. So you can customize a lot of those sort of things. Within the light, you can change some of the light settings, and you do have access to your ambient lighting. Now that's under the comfort tab as well, but you can go in and manage the ambient light. System is the more global changes. So if you want to say change the displays, so like I was saying, there is the old style display. If I go in here, if I click zero layer, I can click the classic, and it'll be a more simple design where you don't have that kind of computer screen. It's just all your icons are on display along the screen at any given time. So you might, you know, if you want to try that. Graphical goodies is just having some sort of Easter eggs turned on. I'd suggest leave that on for the beginning of the ownership experience, just because it is kind of fun, some of the stuff they put in there. But yeah, like you've got a lot of kind of settings you can change in here. And when it's time to sell the car, you click reset. You can wipe all of this out by hitting the reset button. Gets rid of all your data, anything. And then the last tab, info. So this, you have the operator's manual, which on a car like this is, you know, twice as thick as a normal vehicle, but the whole thing is in the screen here. So it's searchable, you can look for any piece of information, and then you just have your software information, things like that, set up in there. So that is your settings. Now comfort, like I was saying, that is where you have access to the ambient lighting, which is a toy that everybody likes to play with our new car. So 64 colors to choose from. If I click multicolor, I've got all these new style, like I've got Miami Rose and there's Malibu Sunset, and they actually blend the colors in the more modern Mercedes. You see it's not two colors separated, it's a blending of the two colors. If I click this one with the little EV icon, so Energy Shine actually, as I'm driving, if I accelerate very hard, it's pulsing red. If I'm like coasting and it's putting energy into the battery, you're gonna see that flow of energy. So that's exclusive one to the EVs. And you can change the whether the effects are turned on, and the brightness, of course, is adjustable. So you can change that sort of up or down. If I go to the seat adjustment, so I've got seat kinetics where I can have the seat move every so often. You know, on a long night drive, it's kind of nice. So you can have it set to different times, and you can have it be just the backrest, just the seat surface, or both. So if I turn that on, what'll happen is my seat will just move slightly every so often, the seat bottom, the seat back. Just kind of keeps you awake, keeps you fresh when you're driving. I have the ability to adjust the seat heating. So steering wheel heating is tied to the seat heating in the modern Mercedes. So you click that, the steering wheel will turn on automatically, so it's not two button presses. And seat heating balance, I can roll the heat. So I could say, you know, I want the heat to be a little bit more on my bottom and less on my back, or vice versa. So you've got that customization of your seat heating. I can have the vehicle try and position the seat for me automatically. So based on my height, I can set my height and it'll just try and get me to a good starting position. And then I can reset, so I can get rid of all that. Energizing comfort is that it again uses that puck of the scented oil. These are presets where you're telling the car, I want you to give me this experience for, I think it's about 10 minutes. So you pick which one you want, so sounds of the sea, and it actually has preloaded audio, and it's kind of trying to give you an experience. So say it's a cold day and I want warmth. So if I click, you know, me and my passenger want the warmth experience, and so right now it's playing. So it's going to show me this image. This is a moving image on the screen. It's going to play a certain audio track. It's going to put a certain scent into the cabin, and I'm getting that experience of warmth. It even changes the ambient light to the settings. So that energizing comfort, that again, it's a toy, but it's a really, really fun toy, and it gives you a little bit of an explanation at the top of what each one of these is going to offer you. Now if I go back into here, so phone is pretty simple. That's where you pair your phone up. Radio and media are what you're listening to while you're driving. So I showed you the radio tab. Media, it won't do anything when a phone's not connected, but you can play music from a USB stick, or you can stream music from your phone. And the new MBUX system has some smart adjustments. So if I'm listening to music on my phone, I can just say next track, and the car will try and, like, it'll jump to the next track. So I don't have to like swipe a button or click anything or say, hey Mercedes, I just say next track, boom, next track. Same thing, if you're getting a phone call, you can say answer and it'll answer the call. So that, hey Mercedes, you can kind of skip it for certain audio cues, and that's all explained in that little introduction to her. Info is a tab that Mercedes had in our vehicles for a long time. This is just if you want to see what's going on with the car. So I can pick the vehicle tab, and it's showing like I'm standing on the brake right now at 28%. If I press the accelerator, it goes to that, shows me my steering angle. I can see the pitch and roll of the car. So you've got kind of just a data collection going on, and then there's a visual for that. And then if I click the little arrow, go to the next screen, then I have the ability of, once my phone is paired, this would be to jump into Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Now that is kind of a redundancy, because when your phone is paired up, there'll be a little Apple CarPlay or Android Auto icon on the top left. You just click that and it'll switch. All of this disappears and it gets replaced by your Apple interface. And then if you want to go back, you just click home, takes you back to Mercedes, you click that. So it's very seamless wireless Apple CarPlay. So that's those tabs. Now the buttons along the bottom here, so some of these are, again, capacitive touch. So like the volume control, if I slide my finger, then it'll turn it up or down, or I can click on the icons if I want to give myself more volume. And you can mute and unmute right there. Dynamic is your drive mode, so that you actually click. So I push on the arrow, so now I'm in eco drive mode. I have the ability to go over to comfort. By default, it'll be in comfort every time, sport, and I can make my own. And if you make your own drive mode, it'll actually prompt you at startup, do you want to activate your drive mode each time you start the car. The camera and parking, so at any point, whether I'm in drive or in park, if I click that, it'll bring up the top-down view of my car, and this I can actually scroll around and move and see how close I am parked to various vehicles around. These are the different camera options, so like you can have your front, your rear, you can have your rim savers, so I can see how close I am to the curb on either side of the car. You can pin the parking spot, so that's where it drops that pin where it'll recognize when you are coming up to that parking spot. And you also have the ability, bring that up again, of having the auto parking. So where if I use the parking assistance, so click that, then you get this screen where the vehicle is looking for a parking spot. And if I was inching forward, you're gonna get these like waves coming off the car, like kind of like sonar. And if it sees a spot, it'll actually indicate on either side of the car. You can do parallel parking or perpendicular parking. And you click the spot you want, you click the park assist button, and the car will park for you. The steering wheel literally starts going and it'll slide you into the spot. It can get you out of the spot after you're done. So that's your park button. EQ is a button, just quickly brings up the EQ stuff. So it's same as that button there, but jumps you into the charging status information. And then this one, if I click that, then I get some of the things you might want to like either turn on or off on the fly. So these are some vehicle settings that they think that people like might want to quickly, like say I'm going through a McDonald's drive-through and I want to turn off my Parktronics so it's not beeping when I'm pulling up to pay, or I can turn off my head-up display or the lane keep or steering assist. There's a car wash mode so the car doesn't freak out when the things are getting close to the vehicle. Snow chains, if you have those loaded on. By default, interior protection is turned on so the vehicle will sense if there's movement inside the vehicle when you're not in it. Tow-away alarm, so your Mi Connect would tell you if the car ever gets bumped or if something's going on, but you have that option to turn that off. And then all settings brings up all settings, obviously. So that's what the little picture of the car. This is your hazard lights, so flashes your four-way flashers. The vehicle does have some additional security built in because you're kind of providing access to some information on you in the car. So if you want, if I put my finger on that, there's a fingerprint scanner, so I can activate that. So you can have it either let you into this system via voice access, fingerprint, or a 4-digit code. By default, there is no kind of barrier, but if you want to set up security, that's the easiest way to do it, is just rest your finger on there, click on the that there once your Mi Connect is activated, and each driver can have their own fingerprint scan and it'll bring up their profile too. And then the last one is if you want to power off the screen. So if you're doing a long night drive and you just don't want this kind of screen staring at you, you could power that down. Yeah, so that's the bulk of the buttons sort of between you and the door. Up top you have your home link, so just like any Mercedes that has integrated garage door opener, there's 3 buttons under here you can program to your garage door. You've got your reading lights, rear lights. Mercedes Me will call the Mercedes assistant team, so that's for roadside, or if you just had a issue or question with the car, you can turn off where the doors will activate the interior lights. SOS will call emergency emergency services like 911. So if I click that, that's actually under a separate button, just so you don't hit it by accident, but that activates that. And then you have a slider for the sunroof. So unlike previous generation Mercedes where there was a physical button, now I just swipe my finger along that and the sunroof will start to open. So it's recognizing the capacitive touch. So I just swipe my finger forward and it closes. And then you swipe it forward a second time if you want to close the blind. You've got cup holders with pressure sensors. So if I put a beverage on here, it swings around and closes behind it. Same thing with the back one. If I need to remove this for cleaning, that's what this little tab is for. You've got a couple of USB-C charging ports there and a wireless phone charger, kind of a soft touch thing there. This little picture of the key, if your key fob is ever completely dead and the vehicle is saying place the key in the marked spot, that's where you put your key and it'll still start even with a dead battery. And then if I click this button, opens up the center console, and I have 2 more USB-C. So you've got 2 here plus the wireless, 2 here, and then 2 actually in the back as well. So lots of charging spots for your phones. And I think with that, we are kind of at the completion. So hopefully you enjoy your new EV Mercedes. And if you have any questions, then hit me up